So I believe the ribbon was right next to the signboard. If I remember correctly, I think we were standing like right here, myself and Megan Leviton, who was the Parks Commissioner at the time. And we had also somebody from Friends of Recreation and Park, and we were all here cutting the ribbon. The park planner was here. He was actually here with his young son. We had at the time a practice basket here in the grass. And I just remember like making that first putt, the sound of the chains, the gleam of the chains, just the excitement that we had finally done it, that there were baskets in the ground in one of the most iconic parks in America, and that we had done it together, a ragtag volunteer group, who had come together around this love of seeing discs fly through the air and the challenge of putting it in that basket, which still drives me crazy to this very day.
Oh, dude! You got the original tee markers for red versus blue tees. Wow. Actually, this one's a 6, isn't it? My name's Greg Quiroga. I founded the San Francisco Disc Golf Club back in 1996. 7 is when we officially got rolling. Early on, it was really interesting because all I did was talk about disc golf and talk about founding the club. And I would go to Aquatic Park on Saturday and Sunday every weekend and shoot rounds and just try to get people interested. I'm walking out of the Presidio one day and I'm looking around at all the trees and it's utterly beautiful. And I was like, somebody should just build a course right here. And I was like, oh shoot, that somebody's gotta be me, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. Well, I grew up in Buffalo, New York. So fast forward, moved out to the Bay Area, and I just had assumed, because it was the Bay Area, that there would be tons of disc golf courses. Got to San Francisco and realized that I was going to have to drive across the bridge to Aquatic Park to play. And so I just decided, because I'm a political organizer, that my mission was to get a disc golf course in San Francisco. This is early years of the internet, and somehow found Greg Quiroga on, I cannot remember the website, he'll remember it.
www.dnai.com/tilde, because that was my username, /SFDGC.
And he was organizing the San Francisco Disc Golf Club, and so I contacted him, and they had all these wild, like, we're gonna put a basket course in the Presidio, and we're gonna put a course in DuBose Park. And so, we set out to find a place in the city that could accommodate a disc golf course. The farthest thing in my mind was Golden Gate Park.
We didn't even dream of something like Golden Gate Park, because, that was like the holy grail of parks in San Francisco, and they'll never let us in there.
With the encouragement of the Parks Department, we started exploring having a disc golf course in McLaren Park.
Like most San Franciscans who were new to the city, never heard of McLaren Park. Like, whoa, second largest park with 318 acres? Who knew?
We were asked to get community groups on side. We were asked to put a design in. We did all of these things.
Everything was going full steam. We were counting our baskets before they were sunk, right? We were just stoked.
And a couple of neighbors were very upset, and they, I must tip my cap to them. They launched the most kind of brilliant misinformation campaign against us that I've ever been part of. They started circulating flyers that our discs were made from metal, that we were going to ban dog walking, that we were going to cut all the trees down. And so basically, because of their organizing, the Parks Department said, well, we'll have to have another meeting to discuss this. The next meeting came, and it was like a mob scene. There was over 100 neighbors there. There was literally a guy there with a pitchfork. When we brought out the basket, like to show people what a basket looked like, there were screams of horror that they didn't want these things in their park.
It turns out that there were a lot of needs in that community that weren't being met by the Parks Department, and they were rightfully upset about those needs, and we just became an easy focal point.
It was an ugly scene, very militant and unreasonable folks pushing back on it. And, you know, Ross stuck with it.
And after many, many meetings, you know, this went on for probably a year and a half, the planner at the time said, well, we have this piece of property near Marks Meadow.
For me, it was like out of the blue. Like one day they woke up and they thought, you know that thing we thought about 10 years ago? Why don't we try it in Golden Gate Park? We were like, right? Are you kidding?
And I'll never forget coming out here the first time. I remember my heart sank and I was like, what could we possibly do with this? And then we walked around a little bit more and we got to what's now hole 5. And I think a light bulb went off for both Leonard and I that like, we could definitely put a course in here. You know, we knew that what we needed to do was to just get baskets in the ground.
At that point, even though I'm an East Bay guy, I'd run a big tournament here. I had a girlfriend that lived just off the park on the other side. I knew the park really, really well, and as a disc golf head, I'd walked 80% of it. Sometimes actually mapping courses somewhat intentionally just for the exercise of it, because I just enjoyed the process. So I kind of knew all of it.
I worked with a member of the Parks Commission, Megan Levitin, who really, you know, should really get a lot of credit for this course going in.
When we went up on the berm and walked closer to Fulton, it seemed like a really good use of space because it was just kind of creepy space. When I saw that with Ross, I thought, this is actually, and it's going to be active and it's going to be a sport and it's going to be popular. It was just, that's when I started to get pretty sold. We're talking about something so at the grassroots level and something that reaches across all neighborhoods, demographics. It's really exactly what we wanted to see for recreational activity. It was just so totally new.
The first time that we had a community walkthrough out here, and I remember there was this one little old lady who was walking the course with us, and she said, so wait, so you want to do what? And we're like, well, we want to, you know, start here and throw a Frisbee to here and put it in, you know, it's going to go in this basket. She's like, oh, that sounds fun. You know, and it was like, oh, it was such a, you know, night and day from this, like, the politically charged, like, really, like, angry at the Parks Department to like, oh, you know, like reasonable people finding reason within what we wanted to do. And so once we had the temporary course in here, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was definitely straightforward.
For me, the history was sort of organic in that I wasn't part of the original group of folks that drove this through to completion. When I came in, the course was a temp course. It was not a permanent course yet. I came over and there was, I guess, 11 holes, depending on who you're asking and when you're talking about. We played the basic loop of 9 on the front twice. We had a red marker and a blue marker, so there was 2 tee boxes and 1 pin location. So we would just play the course, the 9 holes twice, and that was our temp round.
You know, I think with a lot of disc golfers thought we were sort of selling out by agreeing to a temporary course. We just said, look, we will agree to a 12-hole course for 18 months, and then we'll see if it's popular and if it fits well with the park, and use that next 18 months to sign up to every disc golfer who showed up here. We got their name, we got their email, we got their phone number.
When it came time, you know, to actually putting things to writing and actually seeing if they can actually do what they said they were doing, the milestones, they were doing it. And that, I think, was a turning point for me to see, like, this is more than just a couple guys throwing Frisbees. They have a following, although it was clear you guys had a following at that first commission meeting. It was a lot of people.
The moment of truth in terms of when it went from a temp course and we were trying to figure out whether or not we were going to be allowed to make it a permanent course was in October 2005. There was a hearing, and the last item on the agenda was, well, shall we make the temporary course in Golden Gate Park a permanent course? And the decision was almost unanimous. One guy dissented, and then as soon as he saw that everybody else was on board, he says, all right, I changed my vote. We'll make it unanimous. The course is a permanent course. Picture, if you will, a bunch of disc golfers with collared shirts and some with neckties cleaned up to be at this meeting. Everybody threw their hands in the air and cheered, and it was order or it was great. It was a very, very happy moment.
It was awesome though. It was awesome because that in that moment, that was 100% buy-in. That was, everybody felt really good about the process, about the people, and about what we were getting.
And I just remember having this moment, looking Ross in the eyes and just being like, dude, and then getting, can't do it anymore, but getting this big, big hug. It was a big moment. And then it was like, okay, well, now we've got a chorus, and it was like, okay, it was like this big emotional moment, and then it was a little bit like, looking at the fountain at the Bellagio at the end of Ocean's 11, and all just kind of turning around and being like, I guess we go start playing, right?
So we took out that temporary course in December. So essentially, it lay fallow for almost a year, and we then started work on the course in 2006, late 2006.
And I knew how important this was going to be to the community. I knew all the effort that went into this. I knew the grief that with the McLaren experience, that was very painful for a lot of people. This would heal that wound a lot to have a success here. There's so many reasons that this course needed to be as good as it could be.
Leonard and I were out here, I can't tell you, countless hours walking every single inch of this property. We did design the course basically around hole 5, but figuring out what was a good, challenging course in an area that was really pretty rough took a lot of time and a lot of thought.
It was my first permanent course. It was freaking Golden Gate Park. To be able to plant a tree in Golden Gate Park feels like an amazing experience because it's just a ridiculous place, right? So I was probably out here twice as many times on my own for every time I was out here with Ross. And I would review things he and I had already discussed. And part of working it, which is totally OCD, it had probably no tangible benefit, is I came out here with graph paper and I walked every hole. And I'm like, okay, each square on the graph represents 10 feet. Okay. Walk every hole, and I'd make a little circle for the size of the tree. No, and I'd step back, I'm like, no, the tree's a little bigger than that. Erase it, make the circle a little bigger. No, I was right the first time. Oh, no, it's 5 feet this way. And I did that for every hole.
Didn't see much of Leonard because I was always working. But yeah, I found out later, I didn't really understand at the time, but Leonard and Conrad were doing a lot of that hiking, measuring, distancing, looking. Hole 14, when I was building that tee pad, I'm looking down the fairway going, what are we doing up here? There's no fairway. And after the tee pad was built, and we took out one tree. It was right in front of the tee pad, hanging across with ivy on it. Took that out of there, it opened up the whole fairway. One of my favorite holes out here. That was Leonard. He saw it, nobody else did.
This club, the amount of skilled labor was extraordinary. People who had, worked construction, who had all the equipment and the tools.
3 or 4 of us, D'Agostino and Sontag, myself and Les, we were all in the building trades, and we all have our trucks packed with tools. We'd each, put a little crew together and go hit a location and install.
Oh, we had specific instructions from Parks and Recs on how to build something in their park. I thought it was a lot of overkill, but come see, look at it now, it's still here.
I did a lot of work building the course. I spent many hours out there. I helped Leonard measure off hole 15 on a memorable day one time. So that was a lot of fun for me to get to know Leonard in those days.
People will tell me stories about, I was there, oh yeah, Leonard, I remember what we were doing. And I've heard a little story or two about me helping with the labor, but the only thing I can really remember was clearing the fairway on 12 because it was a homeless encampment and we found a lot of needles. And it was just overgrown with ivy and brush.
There were multiple homeless encampments back there. There were places people just didn't walk through the park.
It took 6 months to build the course. There were volunteer hours every Saturday and every Sunday. I would be remiss if I did not mention my dear friends Ann Farrell and Les Swift, who were primary movers in getting that course in the ground.
Yeah, I remember getting here 7:30, 8 o'clock, and Ann and Les would have Pete's coffee and scones, like a big tankard of Pete's coffee, get everybody fueled up for the day.
And coordinating all the workers to go to the different places. Les out on the course, building another tee box or putting in another net somewhere, doing something. Every weekend for 6 months, those people were out there, and so were a lot of other people.
Les would basically say, okay, this is what we want to get done today, and he'd give it to me. He'd take one half, I'd take the other half, and away we go.
I remember we were installing the course during the first Hardly Strictly Bluegrass. We had generators and jackhammers, but we had generators and tampers, and we had a great soundtrack. And there were all these people pouring through, like, what are you guys doing? We're like, we're building a disc golf course. They're like, oh, wow, that's great. Like, when can we play? We're like, well, after the concert, you know, like a couple days, maybe a week.
I think what I have come to really respect about this whole effort is the longevity of the sport and the depth of it. And I'm sure at the back of all of our minds, we worried, you guys said, we will take care of it. We will maintain it. And I'm certain there were people who thought that would never last this long. And it has.
SF Rec and Park gave us permission to build the course, and they gave us the land to steward. They did not give us any money. We raised the money privately to build all of the infrastructure, buy all the baskets, all the cement, all the wood that goes into putting these tee boxes together, all the grading, all the different work. All of that work was done with private donations and volunteer labor.
This really does bring back memories, and because I had no idea how any of this was supposed to work, so I'm looking at that first pad, and I still remember Ross saying, oh, we're pouring the concrete, and the weather wasn't really good, so the concrete wasn't curing, and so we're still having to pour the pads, and just it's bringing back a lot of memories of what a Herculean effort it was, and how many pieces of it there were, and how it was all taken care of, and how these guys all had it laid out and got it all done. And then this sign, like I say, it's just like this beacon, always a reminder that how legit this was too. You know, because all along the way, Ross would say, here's what we're envisioning, this is what we're about. And because I didn't know enough about it, I think there was always a part of me that thought, yeah, well, we'll see if it happens. And that's real, you know, that's serious, and that's permanent, and that's here. I got to learn how to play. That's what you're making me think right now. So, that's great. It's great.
The course has changed. It has evolved into the course it is now. It's a much more manicured looking course. It's just beautiful, and particularly in the springtime. You see a lot of the infrastructure that was built by club members years ago is still holding up. The work of the beautification project to grow grass there, and you walk through and you see the beautiful Jacques Duhon Garden. So it's a spiritual place, it's a beautiful place, and we've all spent a lot of time looking up at the Monterey pines and cypress and thinking, boy, how fortunate we are to be right here.
There are not a lot of things in life that you know, you feel like you really leave a legacy. And with the disc golf course, like, I know even after I'm gone that my name will be here and people will talk about my contribution. I also put in my will that my wife has to spread my ashes on hole 5, so she's not very happy about that, but she did agree to it finally, under some duress.
When you serve, as I was honored to do on that commission for 12 years, a lot of your votes are sort of not tangible, but I drive past here all the time. I point it out to my kids, and I think, oh God, that was really special.
Plaque on the tee pad, it's sort of a constant reminder of what we built here. And the fact that Leonard's name is on there as well just warms my heart, reminds me of all the work we put into, all the meetings, all the planning, all the walkthroughs, all the different technical design specifications we had to comply with to get the course in. So this right up the gut. Terrible. but still fun.
First thing foremost is just, I'm sort of a solo act in a lot of the stuff I do, and partnering with Ross was a joy, and both in terms of just personal relationship, you know, enjoying his company, but also getting the work done, you know, figuring out what we wanted to do on different holes, on the bigger decisions and overall routing and flow. It was fantastic, and you know, and it was what you'd want. We disagreed plenty, and we never had any trouble finding a way to get on the same page. It's like, all right, you can have this one, and then I get the next one. It was nothing but joy and satisfaction with the results. So he got to pick this hole. I'm not the kind of course designer who likes to punish the players, who likes to see them suffer. It's not my preference, but Ross has enough of that, I think, going for him that when we talked about, so which hole do you want to have? He's like, yeah, I want 5. It was his idea for sure. He's like, because it's the hardest hole. It'll be a hole that people will remember. And I'm like, all right, dude, that's whatever hole you want is fine by me. So that's how we ended up with 5.
Yeah, don't use that. 3, 4, 5.
How's the night vision on that thing? We have a lamp. Ooh, sliding. Come back. Hey. It's not dependent. Oh, we're on the tee pad right now. Yes, it's back here, dude. Look at this.